What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about one thing that bugged me at the end of Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Now, I've talked about it here and there, but I wanted to make a dedicated video, kind of just get it all out, put it in one, full-on video, have you guys tell me your thoughts, and then largely move on from it until it kind of comes back, because sadly, this is a plot issue for me. It's a plot issue that I do think is going to kind of come back once we get to Spider-Man 3. And if you've, again, watched some of my past videos, you might know what I'm going to say. And this is spoilers, obviously, because it's an endgame kind of plot thing. It's the Norman Osborn kind of turning on Peter situation, okay? So let's just kind of get it all out there. I'll explain exactly what I mean. I'll explain why I think that's an issue going forward. So, end of the game. You have Norman telling Spider-Man, I think we got to actually kind of be specific there, right? Doesn't know. Which, by the way, Peter or Spider-Man is always with MJ. They're like so close, and Norman sees it, and he knows like Harry and Peter. I don't know how Norman hasn't figured it out, is basically what I'm getting at, but that's not it, okay? Towards the end of the game, you got Norman telling Spider-Man to save Harry, right? He's seen what Harry is. Okay, like Venom, right? He knows how he got thrown across the room by him, right? He knows he's a danger, all this stuff. Now, I understand that he's still his son, and he probably sees him like that, right? But he knows he's a monster. He knows he's killed a lot of people, yada, 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 okay? You had, at the same time, Dr. Connors telling Spider-Man, right? Again, they don't know, that you're going to have to kill him, right? So on one side, you have Norman saying, please save, my son. And then the other side, you have like a well-respected doctor by Norman, right? Like in the same social circle, telling him that like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work. Like you're going to probably have to kill him in order to kind of separate him. In order to stop Venom, you're going to have to kill Harry, okay? Now that's the start of where I think this is kind of a problem going forward, right? So they go off and they have their, altercations with Venom, and by the end of the game, they save Harry. And I think that's very important to say because, again, last thing Norman sees from Spider-Man and all that stuff is Venom on a tear, Harry kind of completely lost. Now, again, maybe he still sees him as his son, but he sees how far gone he is. He simply requests or asks that, or demands, whatever you want to say, that his son be saved, right? But again, on the other side, you have somebody who's like directly next to him, and I'm sure Connors told him, hey, sir, like it's probably looking like Harry's going to have to die. Now, maybe he didn't say that to him at any point ever, but I have to imagine that probably came up where it's like, yeah, you got to be, and I mean, Norman could have like punched him in the face or whatever, but like I'm sure the conversation probably came up where Norman heard like the other side, that although he wants Harry saved, it makes sense that he's going to have to die, okay? So my problem is simply this. They save Harry. Like Miles resuscitates, shocks him back to life, right? Brings him back, and they separate. Now, maybe there's still like the symbiote kind of strain in Harry, much like there was with Peter. That's not really explored yet, though, so I don't really want to use that as an excuse, right? Venom is gone, okay? Venom is outside of Harry's system, and Harry's not like walking around, like going on jogs and skipping, through. Like, that's not happening. But he is alive. He's alive. That's confirmed. And he's not, connected. He's not like a raging, monster, right? So like they kind of did what Norman said. Now he doesn't know about like the resuscitation, and he doesn't know about like what happened. But all he knows is they left, and it was probably going to be kind of difficult to save Harry, but they actually did it. And while he's not like moving or like awake, he's still alive. And I can understand that would make him mad, and of course he'd probably like want his son at like 100%, but that's where we're at. Harry's alive. So they did do what he asked for. And in fact, again, like they did that with most likely Norman kind of having knowledge that would be next to impossible. That would be the absolute best case scenario. So where I'm a little upset about, and I'll tell you that it's not necessarily an issue so much with the ending of this game. It's a problem that starts at the end of this game, and my worry is that it's going to kind of continue growing and like festering in my head where we get to Spider-Man 3, okay? So to my eyes, it really feels like what happened at the end with, Harry not being awake, and what Norman says to him with the G serum and all that, it feels like that is the plot point that gets Norman to go down the path of being Green Goblin. Now, as I've said, I've mentioned parts of this here and there, but I want to throw it all out, into this video. while I understand that like villains and things, specifically like villains in superhero things, right? They're not, number one, they sometimes are not all that complex. Number two, they sometimes can flip from that, like they're fine to like the villain. They flip like in a second. And like I understand, like maybe you got to give them like the benefit of the doubt, or you kind of have to give it to them a little bit because it's kind of what these villains do, right? Like they're not the deepest things of all, but that's fine, that's fair, but that feels kind of like an excuse to me, honestly, where I think you can do better. And that's honestly where I'm at. I think you can do better, where I get that, like, this is probably serviceable. And again, like, in comics or in movies, like, you've probably seen worse. And by worse, I mean, like, less, like, even, like, smaller things that would get a villain to kind of just flip the switch and say, I'm evil now. And obviously, like, the G serum is going to get him further along, right? Like, he's not literally insane yet. It's going to only kind of, elevate that. I understand all that. But if this is the moment that makes him want to turn, and I guess even taking a step further in terms of what we see in this game, because some of the stuff hasn't happened, right? When they're carrying Harry out, he scolds them. Norman scolds and says, like, what have you... And that, to me, is, like, that's why I get worried, because I see that as the moment where he flips, and he's saying, nope, like, you guys are now the enemy. Look at what you did to my son. Like, he's a wreck now. It's all your fault. And it's like, again, you have to have a moment where that happens. Yeah, I actually think you would have to have a moment where Norman just kind of flips the switch and say, you guys are my enemy now because you did X, and now I'm going to do Y. I'm going to become Green Goblin, or I'm mad at you, right? That moment was going to happen, no matter what. And that moment happens, again, in comics, in movies, and shows. And sometimes it's done more naturally. Sometimes it's just done because the creator, like the writers, they had to get there, right? We know we have to get to Green Goblin, and there's not like the perfect way of doing it, so we have to kind of take liberties. I guess, again, where I'm at is I don't actually think you had to. I think there could have been other things you could do. For example, killing Harry. I actually think, I believe they kept him alive to bring him back in the third game, like awake alive, right? That's honestly what I think. If they killed him, you wouldn't be able to do that, and I think they were kind of forward thinking in that way. I would say, and this is what we all predicted, I think killing Harry does get Norman and does make it believable that, like I said, even though Connor said, hey, you're going to probably have to kill him, and Norman said save him, I think if you killed him, yes, he would have way more kind of justification to be mad, right? I would believe his anger much more. This, and I can tell you, actually, my wife maybe even is like a witness here. When he was yelling at them, I kind of got mad at, I was like kind of confused. I was like, well, wait a second. They did what you asked. Like, I understand, again, he's not awake, but he's alive, and you asked for him alive, and you saw what he became, and like, you can't just like undo that with a press of a button. Like, you're not going to magically fix that. So it's like, what did you expect? And you can maybe wake him up. You don't know. Like, just give him a couple of years, right? But it's like that moment, to me, that's a problem. And it makes me a little like that's a plot point to me that I didn't love about Spider-Man 2, about the ending. And I would say going into the third game, it's maybe not the biggest deal right now, but here's the problem. In the third game, he's going to be Green Goblin. He's going to target Pete. He may like try to kill MJ. He might try to kill Rio. He's going to try to kill the Spider-Man. And he's doing all of that because they saved his son. And I know that's looking at it from one way. Like, technically, the way he looks at it is not like that, right? He looks at it with that slight spin of he's a little crazy, right? He's a little off his rocker, and he sees it as you kind of ruined him. He's never going to wake up. But it's like, but you asked for him alive, and you saw what he was, and I feel like they kind of did the best they could. In fact, I think they went above and beyond. I think Miles, like, brought him back. So, like, if Miles wasn't there, he's just dead. If both of them weren't there, he would still be Venom. Like, what did you want? Like, literally, what situation would you prefer over what you got? So, to me, it wasn't great for the ending. I kind of was more, like, annoyed at it, where I was like, well, they did everything you asked for. Why are you getting mad at them? And then it's like, oh, yeah, now I have to, like, it's not just that. Now I have to take that plot point and say, oh, yeah, this is what's going to make him become a maniac that wants to kill people. And specifically wants to kill people that the Spider-Man love. Like, he's going to do that because they didn't kill Harry. Like, and it's like that really hurts. So you could say, why am I focusing on it? Well, because I wanted to, and I just wanted to, again, put it all into one kind of video to live on. So I don't know, maybe they can do something in 3 to kind of, maybe he's going to give the Spider-Man like one more chance, and they do something that ticks him off. Like maybe they can still do something. And I don't even, it's just me. I don't know how many other people have this issue with it. I've seen a couple, but it's not like the biggest thing that I've seen people talk about online. That's okay. I'm okay being like a loner in this situation. But, I wanted to just throw it out there in a video and have you guys sound off on it. So let me know. Let me know. Do you agree? Do you think I'm thinking too much into it? You guys let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.